imagine a world where you could live forever, but not quite the way that you and I know how it is right now. Imagine you're like in almost like a data disk. At least your conscious mind is downloaded into a data disk, and you can just insert this disk into whatever body you want. That's the premise of Altered Carbon, kind of in a nutshell. And today on the show, we're talking with Alex Huilman from Hunters Entertainment about their RPG about Altered Carbon, which is on Kickstarter right now. Let's get to the show. Alex, let's just dive right in. Let's talk. First of all, again, congratulations on the Kickstarter success that you're having. It must be really rewarding to see the type of response. You know, after I know Kickstarters, people like us backers always see the launch and then the aftermath, but nobody ever like really kind of comprehends the amount of time and work it takes to actually put all this stuff in motion. And it must be really fulfilling to be able to see that just come alive as soon as you hit that launch button.
Oh, absolutely. And the level of response that we've gotten has been astounding. Like right now, I just refreshed the page and we got 198,755 from 1,863 backers. And we still have 22 days to go on the campaign.
That's crazy.
So. Wow, that's amazing.
That's awesome. You're going to be probably one of the highest RPG, Kickstarter of 2020.
That last which is 5 or 7 day thing is going to go huge for you guys.
Oh yeah, the last 48 hours are always really intense too, because Kickstarter sends out all those reminder emails to everybody.
If you don't double that up, I'll be amazed.
Yeah, I was looking at Kick Track that does the kind of like projections and things like that. And when we first started off, they were being pretty generous. To be fair, when we first kicked it off, it was like 1.5 million is what they were estimating us to hit to, which all of us were kind of like, that's probably a little generous. But they are saying right now we are probably trending towards like a 765,000 finishing point. So that would be, I certainly wouldn't complain about that in any way.
No, that would be phenomenal. That's great.
It would be amusing if you guys were the one people that did complain.
It's too much.
That would be a good way to make it on the news. Actually, like unusually, Kickstarters usually are thrilled with these amounts of funding, but these people at Hunters Entertainment are all like, "What are you doing?"
We're gonna cancel half those pledges because this is way too much money.
This is foolishness.
You guys are just way too excited here. Just way too excited.
Gonna take it down a couple notches. You posted, come on, guys, take it down. Take it down.
So let's talk a little bit about. Of course, we all know that the Altered Carbon is from Skybance Television. Let's talk a little bit about the team behind the RPG. Can you tell us a little bit about, because it's not, I know there's a lot of folks, and a lot of these folks are folks that I know and that I consider friends that are behind this. So I'm really excited to have you on so we can kind of showcase all the work that you folks have been putting behind this project.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got a lot of really great people that ended up working on the core book for Altered Carbon, and we've got more really fantastic people lined up for some of those stretch goals that we've unlocked. So for the core book, it was designed by both Christopher De La Rosa and Ivan Van Norman here at Hunters Entertainment. They are the two original founders and partners behind the company, and Chris was the lead developer through that process. Which he has a fantastic eye for all sorts of different types of game mechanics. So he is also our lead developer on like Outbreak Undead as well.
Okay.
Yep. So he's got a pretty good pedigree of developing systems there. And he's also a fantastic designer too. So he did a bit of the like layout and graphic design on the project as well. And he used to do things like that for Netflix and a few other companies over the years as well. So having his touch there, as you guys saw in the quick start guide, like he's got a flair for making just very beautiful books. So yeah, the core book itself is going to be no exception to that. Then obviously everybody knows Ivan Van Norman.
I've never who? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Ivan's awesome.
I'm actually let's see if I can get it there. Yeah, I believe Ivan Van.
Can we get that shirt added to the Kickstarter?
Actually, I wonder if I can get one that says "I blame Jason Hunt."
No.
Yes.
It would say I bleep Jason Hunt.
What?
Well.
No, it would not say that. And it would not say that at all, Jason. I don't know what you're talking about.
It would for you, Doug.
Cast,
It would for you.
Wow.
That spiraled very fast.
Context is everything. Context is everything.
Anyway,
so, yeah, I mean, those two were the two leads behind the project. Obviously, we've also got a few other like really fantastic artists, including, I don't even have the full list right now, but there's a number of Skydance's concept artists. They were kind enough to provide us with things to be able to feature in the book as well. So there will be some pretty cool concept shots that Skydance had provided there. We've also got Pace Porter's Zeta and James Paik on the art and composition side of things. So we've got a really strong team that was able to provide the actual look of the book. And then on the writing side, we've got some names that folks will likely recognize. There's Jameson McDaniel contributed on the writing side of the book. We've got Rodrigo Marin and Andrew Nielsen and Razor Fist, who does have a pretty good online following as well.
Nice.
So there's quite an eclectic group of individuals who went ahead and contributed to the actual writing on the actual project as well. And then there's so many other people involved in the whole process, like Scott Gata from Renegade Game Studios, our partners who are co-publishing the book with us. He has been invaluable and fantastic, like he always is. I mean, we get to work with him on a fairly regular basis due to the partnership, but it's been beautiful having him involved. Then Joe LaFavi from Genuine Entertainment. He is the brand and production management and also one of the managing RPG producers on the project. And Doug, you know Joe, so
I know Joe. Joe's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's I don't think I have, whenever I see him at a convention, like I don't think that guy ever has a bad day in his life. Like he's always like he's always just like smiling and like energetic and like, I don't know, maybe he's just living the, you know, loving being at a con. I you know, and I actually got to have dinner with him during PAX Unplugged, and man, that guy is just hilarious. And yeah, I like Joe. I hope we can hang out a little bit more often.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic, and I get to thankfully chat with him on a fairly regular basis at this point. And
nice.
Then beyond that, we've got a whole bunch of people who did beta testing of the rules, because we're introducing the hazard system with Altered Carbon, the role-playing game here. So we wanted to make sure that we got that nice balance of good mechanics that also fit right with the system. So we did get together a large team of beta testers to kind of go through, test out the system, make sure that things felt right. That's actually the contribution outside of general project management that I provided on Altered Carbon specifically. So trying out a few different variations of different things, like when we were setting up the difficulty system that we finally decided on, there were a couple of design ideas that Chris had actually for approaching that. And we did a couple test sessions where we would, you know, for 1/3 of the session, we'll do difficulty this way. For the next third, we'll do it this way. And for the final third, we'll do it this way. And then get feedback from everybody at the end of it of which one kind of felt right and what were the pitfalls from some things. So we definitely went ahead and threw the system through lots and lots of testing as well.
Nice. let's since you're talking about the system, let's talk a little bit about the system. It uses a unique system that you're for this game called the hazard system.
Yep, that was designed by Christopher De La Rosa here in house, and it has some hallmarks that people will recognize. So, like if you're fans of our other content, you'll see some little tidbits of Outbreak Undead in there. You'll see some facets of the more narrative style of approach from like Kids on Bikes. And then also some inspirations from other systems as well. So a good one that we use for comparative is Savage Worlds, because of the way the dice system works in the hazard system. There are some similarities to the Savage Worlds system. A lot of people describe it as Savage Worlds, but in reverse. So instead of trying to roll high, you're trying to roll low.
Which I like those types of systems, because it kind of puts a cap on how like powerful like a PC can be. So like a lot of people are like, it doesn't feel natural. Well, yeah, it doesn't feel, but I like having that ceiling, like.
And it gives an interesting narrative flavor. It means that no matter how bad you are at something, you always still have the ability to make an attempt. So every dice has the ability to roll low, but not every dice has the ability to roll high. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, it gives a very nice cinematic flair of that moment of come on, I really need to pull this out. It's a 2 difficulty, but I got a D12 that I got to try to make this thing on. There's a chance at least. So, and when you hit that, everybody at the table getting excited about it, and yeah, it's a really fantastic mechanic. And it was a really good approach, I think, that Chris made to the whole system.
Well, and I got to say too that I'm really happy to see a system where the D4 has its chance to shine.
Exactly.
Yes. The unsung hero of the dice bag is the D4.
Yeah. This is maximum skill.
Exactly. That's the big player at the table now.
None of this oversized D20. Give me an oversized D4.
So Alex, is there any talk about having the hazard system to be like an open license and having that free for other creators to use?
So that isn't something that we've necessarily fully looked into just yet. That said, we definitely think that the hazard system has potential for other games outside of Altered Carbon. So it's definitely something that I expect will come up at least in probably some future projects on our end, and we may consider looking into doing like an open license with it and getting it out to more companies and brands as well.
Nice. So would that open up to like posting stuff on Drive-Thru RPG and stuff like that?
Yeah, that would definitely potentially open up to something like that. Now, we already do a lot of posting of stuff on Drive-Thru. So people who have been following Hunters for a while will know about our Free Content Friday program, where on the first Friday of every month, we actually toss out a free piece of content for Outbreak Undead, the Powered by Kids on Bikes line of products, because there is now Teens in Space as well as Kids on Bikes, and we may have some more things in the bucket down the road. And then also Icarus, which is one of our newer titles. That one is also a part of the Free Content Friday right now. And recently our partners at Renegade actually went ahead and roped Overlight into that process. So
nice.
Yep, we've got a lot of good stuff coming out for free each month that we kind of toss up there. Now, what particular properties we end up expanding that to in the future, that we'll have to kind of see, and some of that with a few of the projects that we're working on, like Altered Carbon and some other things that we've kind of picked up recently. There's some licensing involved and stuff like that. So there are people that would have to sign off on having something like that done. But it's not far-fetched for us to potentially do that.
So, Alex, as you obviously know, it's like when you're making these tabletop role-playing games, there's these two major pieces. It's the system and the setting. And you can have a really great setting, but a really bad system, and people are just gonna not want to play. You can have a really good system, but not a really good setting. And people might be able to still tend to play it because they can actually do more sandboxing with the actual world. So with that said, how much did you guys throw on the table and say, we have to make sure that this hazard system is really easy to understand, really easy to pick up? Because, being in the industry, everybody's trying to make a new dice system or a new system for role-playing games. How much did you guys actually have that conversation and say, do we want to do something new, or do we want to use one of our existing systems already in place?
So interestingly, when we got the Altered Carbon property, Chris had actually been working on the hazard system for a while at that point. So it wasn't necessarily originally directly designed for Altered Carbon. However, with that said, once we got that property, we realized that there was a really good pairing there.
Okay.
So the setting and the hazard system do both lend themselves very nicely to each other. And then with a few extra little bits on top to accommodate, obviously, like you were mentioning, the lore of the actual setting there are some things that we needed to be able to address specifically for Altered Carbon that you might not necessarily use if you were to use the system for another line. But with that said, yeah, it's definitely a very adaptable system right from the get-go, because that's kind of what Chris was working towards building, was a game system that can be used for more than one type of property.
So they call it, and you're calling it a neo-noir setting.
Yes.
Now, so explain what is the difference between cyberpunk setting and a neo-noir setting?
So cyberpunk is kind of just touching on more specifically the more postmodern genre in general, with like the great grand technology and things of that nature. Whereas the neo-noir is getting more into the actual the way you present the actual stories themselves. So it's more of a mystery, investigative, solving the puzzle, solving the crime, figuring out where all the plot twists and things are going to come. That's really where the neo-noir focuses in on, which is also kind of what helps to differentiate the Altered Carbon role-playing game from some of the other cyberpunk styled games that are out on the market, like Eclipse Phase, which really they master the horror in cyberpunk entirely, which is why we didn't really necessarily lean into per se a horror approach with our games, even with this particular game, even though we do have a pedigree with that, with like all Outbreak Undead and all of that. We decided to go into a different area of the setting and overall genre and explore that, because we don't think that it's actually been explored in all that much detail really on the market right now for tabletop RPGs.
Right. So then with that explanation, then you would probably have a good argument by saying Blade Runner, the first movie, was more neo-noir than cyberpunk then.
Yes, I think that would be but it was both still. Yeah. And that is a very important thing for us, is that we do not feel that the neo-noir distinction really necessarily has to be separate from cyberpunk, that they are both together core concepts of what Altered Carbon actually is.
So let's we've got some questions in the chat. Actually, Cameron F has a question which I think is going to lead to one of my questions. You have a projected date of April for the digital book, the digital version of the book. So that must mean that it's pretty. I mean, we're in February now. April's not all that far away. You must have a lot of the book pretty much set.
Yeah, to give you guys a rough idea without going too terribly far down the rabbit hole. Right now, as I'm actually talking to you guys, I'm actually looking at one of the more recent versions that we've spit out of what would essentially be a full PDF of the entire core rulebook, minus some things that are still being worked on and touched up yet at the moment, with some editing and a few other things that still need to be done here. But yeah, the book itself is basically there.
Nice.
So
That's
yeah,
good.
the Kickstarter was really more a means of, we've got the game, we just need to get the funds together to do the print run. So it wasn't, it wasn't necessarily to make sure that we could go get the development done and all of that. That is a lot of times associated with Kickstarters, which I know is really what threw a lot of people when they started seeing those dates. They're like, how is that even going to happen? And yeah, that is specifically with the core book as well. So I do want to make it clear that obviously, like the stretch goal supplements that we've been unlocking, those won't necessarily deliver at the exact same time, because those we had to get them unlocked to actually have the money to go and get them developed. So
you wanted to make sure that there was a community, or there was consumers behind the product that you were putting out before you put in an additional investment into the beyond the core book. Cameron F, their question was, does your game, Alex, does your game use a class system, and if so, what classes are available in the core book?
Gotcha. So I wouldn't call it, I mean, it's sort of a class system. That's not necessarily the exact way that I would describe it. We call it an archetype system. So actually there are, let me just double check here, because I sometimes forget exactly what all ones we have. So we've got, there's civilian, criminal, official, socialite, soldier, technician, as well as some variant characters that you're going to actually potentially be able to play in there as well, because this is the Altered Carbon universe. So we do also touch on characters such as AI, envoys, meths, and characters with religious coding as well, which is a big thing, as you'll recall from the whole season 1 plot of the actual show. Religious coding was a big factor of that. So we do actually have some details in there about that too.
I remember looking at that and I was thinking, why would I want to play a groundling or whatever? It's that point of a civilian if I could just play a socialite, and then good comes with the bad. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it says if you're playing a socialite, you're going to have more enemies and more memory than if you were just playing a regular civilian. So there's good with the bad.
Oh, absolutely. And with the whole gimmick of immortality as well, there's some factors to take into consideration with just how old you even want your character to be at the beginning of the game. So we did a one-shot live play with Hyper RPG a few days ago during the campaign here, and got to show off a little bit about the system in that regards. And the characters during that had different DHF ages, or digital human freight ages. So that's the age of the mind of the person, not necessarily the body that they're actually in at that given time. And that extended lifetime can lead to what we refer to in the game as baggage.
And it reminds me a lot of for those who've played like Vampire the Masquerade, where it's, playing the vampires, like the older you are, the more you have derangements, or the more that the
more likely you're
more
to
hunted.
Odd,
you may be really powerful,
thing,
but
everybody in the world's trying to stick a stake in you.
And we've got all sorts of interesting options for that. So once you've kind of got your decision made on how old you want your character to actually be, we actually will have a baggage table that you'll roll on to kind of see what weird little things you're going to end up picking up with that character, which is a really fun way to go about it. Now, obviously, you can still go in and just kind of like hand pick and choose to make what fits your character. But if you're feeling adventurous, you can do that random chance and just see what happens.
How connected are you guys with like the showrunners of the Netflix series?
So we've worked very, very closely with Skydance in regards to the game, and have taken all of the season 1 events into account. I believe even in the quick start guide, we included that kind of the timeline of Altered Carbon right in there that kind of details out some of the major events leading up to Takeshi Kovacs being sleeved into Elias Riker's body at the behest of Lawrence Bancroft. So yeah, we definitely did work with them on that, and we have some plans in regards to moving forward as well, and continuing along that journey with them, since they are getting ready to move into season 2, which will launch in the midst of our Kickstarter. So yeah, we definitely do have some plans for carrying forward as well.
Is there any phrases or words that you've been putting into the actual game, the core book, that could potentially show up in the actual series as well, that they never had a term for?
Like a source, like
art
that's
imitating
one.
life, life imitating art.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So kind of like the reverse feedback, essentially,
Right.
of are we kind of manipulating the actual canon of Altered Carbon itself? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, that's a good question, Artie.
So now I can't speak to whether or not tons of details will obviously pop up on the show over the course of time, because they already have the production of season 2 done, obviously, and then what happens for seasons moving forward, that's kind of still obviously a little bit up in the air, but we do have the creative license to be able to actually expand upon the world of Altered Carbon in a canonical way. So for instance, the stretch goals that we've got going right now, the source books that we've unlocked so far, one of them was going to be touching on Osaka, which anyone who's watched the show will know that name is at least familiar there, because it does get referenced a few times throughout the course of season 1, though we don't actually go there ever.
Right.
Yeah.
So that one does have a little bit of pedigree already, obviously, with the Altered Carbon universe. However, we've also unlocked at this point Birmingham, which is going to take us over to the UK there, and give us a perspective on a different area of the world than has really been touched on before in the series. And we're also getting very close now to Johannesburg as well. Which is also going to kind of be a generally new area. There is some precedence in the background lore of the Altered Carbon world of some things going on with Johannesburg, but not a lot has been detailed. So those are both areas where we're really going to be exploring them for the first time.
Nice. That's very cool. Cristiano asks, says, do you plan to explore the past of Kovacs and the envoys in their full development?
I'm not fully sure exactly what that's entirely getting at. We definitely, because envoys are going to be a playable character option, so we definitely do cover envoys and their role within the Altered Carbon universe. We probably won't necessarily really like dive into like show characters or anything like that, specifically like having templates or anything in the core book for the characters there. That's not necessarily to say that it isn't something that we might not explore at some point down the road. We haven't really, that one hasn't really been tossed around too terribly much, admittedly. But yeah, we definitely do explore envoys in pretty good detail, and a fair portion of the book does actually, outside of mechanics, since this is a setting with a lot of plot to it and a lot of lore, there is a lot of lore building and explaining the actual world itself in the book also. So yeah, we do spend a little bit of time on history and things like that.
Ibram asks, is in the Twitch one shot, which I'm guessing was the Hyper RPG one shot.
Yeah.
There was some question about rebalancing how many action dice perception gives. Are there any further thoughts on that?
So yeah, we kind of chew things over almost all the time. That's just it's part and parcel with the industry, really. We don't ever really stop developing, even once like even once the game's out, you're as a developer, you're still kind of sitting there looking at things like that could have been tweaked, or maybe this could be tweaked. So I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in perfection. So I always think that there's room for improvement and things that we can be doing and tweaking. It's a matter of eventually you do got to put a product out. You can't just keep tweaking it forever. So you kind of have to find that balance. But yeah, one of the things, for instance, we got some feedback on the quick start guide over the course of the campaign. There's actually been quite a bit of feedback coming in on that, since it is freely available for people to go ahead and take a look at. And we are actually looking into actually taking on that feedback, and we're planning to re-release the quick start guide again before the end of the actual campaign, so that people can get a little bit of an updated taste, and hopefully we might have addressed some of the issues or concerns that people had with some things that they saw in the quick start guide. I know a few people had commented that they felt it was a little more difficult to follow the layout or things like that. So we are definitely taking that very seriously and looking into that. Now, we've also been talking internally about the potential of maybe being able to even do that with the core book itself at some point throughout the post-campaign period, where we might be able to go ahead and get people who backed a look at it early to possibly give us some feedback before we go to print, to be able to potentially take feedback on board once again with the final product.
I don't know if you saw Jason's face. It pretty much just was like, ooh.
And what level would that be?
So that would be any backers. We cherish the feedback from our community, honestly.
Okay,
so we even have a Discord server where you can get in contact with us. The team ourselves, we're on there very regularly interacting. So that's always been a very big thing for us, is engaging with our community and listening to them and understanding what their needs and wants are.
This is one of my personal favorite genres of gaming. So
Awesome.
Any opportunity I can have to stick my nose in that sort of thing, I'm like, yes, please. I'll take three helpings.
Love it.
You were saying that, and Jason's eyes just went.
Yeah, I was just like, what?
Oh man, that's great.
I have one question about the physical rewards. The cortical stack coin.
Oh yeah, that thing's awesome.
Is that going to be modeled after the actual coins from the series, or are you guys going a whole different way with it? Or
oh no, you got the pictures that are on the Kickstarter right now of that, because I've
been looking at those. Yeah.
That's exactly what it looks like on the show, and that is exactly what we're going to be giving out. Actually, on the Twitch one shot, Ivan actually had one of the cortical stacks with him, and he shows it off right at the end. So if you kind of want to get a good idea of like its sizing and things like that, you can skip to the very end of the actual session. And
I had to stop watching.
Can I download? Can I download Jason's memory into one of those, please?
It is available on YouTube now. I do believe they got it up just maybe today, actually, or possibly over the weekend. They did get the recording of it up, so you can actually check that out on their YouTube channel. But yeah, so that'll give you like a rough idea of the size. It's decent size, like it's about like palm kinda, and made out of metal, with a kind of interesting filling, since obviously we couldn't get like actual functional lighting effect going on, and they're really
that would have made it way more expensive.
Yeah, so we did a kind of filling that looks very similar in that kind of bluish hue as the lighting you would see in a live cortical stack from the show. Cool. And we like to use that when we do our test sessions and stuff like that. We'll hand that around as the active player coin.
Oh, nice.
So basically, whoever's active in the initiative at that point in time, they get to hold
that
on
a lot.
Very cool idea, yeah.
Let's see here. Cristiano says pledged. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. Very, very cool.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love being able to introduce folks to some really cool projects on Kickstarter, and this is definitely one of them. let's the other thing that I really love about this is that I love seeing like popular like IPs become RPGs. Like we're seeing that more and more now. Like we've seen that with, you know, and I think that just helps grow the hobby, it grows the industry, like and it introduces so many more folks to RPGs. Like in general, and I think this is going to do that with Altered Carbon. Do you think that this is a good? Would you say that this is a good like a good system to kind of get your feet wet, your toes wet with RPGs?
Oh, absolutely. So it's going to kind of, to put it into a rough perspective, because I know people who are fans of us know that we kind of hit the full spectrum when it comes to the depth and crunch that an RPG could provide. So we've got on like one side, you've got Outbreak Undead, which is shooting for like this simulation-esque feeling to the game. So there's a lot of rules and a lot of details that all interact with each other, and it's quite complex, and can take a bit to get used to and get adapted to. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we've got something like Kids on Bikes, which is almost entirely narrative. It's not quite a diceless game, but it almost, I mean, you really probably could just run it as a diceless game if you honestly wanted to. And so Altered Carbon is going to kind of sit somewhere in the middle there. This isn't a completely rules light game, but it's not jumping into the crazy crunch or anything like that. So it's a pretty solid entry point to give you a perspective of both ways that the genre can go, because it does lean a lot onto the narrative style of play. But there are certainly a decent chunk of mechanics in there as well to accommodate for the whole cyberpunk futuristic type of setting. So yeah, you do get a nice balance, and it can be a very good entry point for both, I think, players and game masters alike, actually.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things about the system that I've read out of the quick start so far, actually, is I'm so used to cyberpunk games or neo-noir, even getting a giant chunk of the book is rules, like half or more sometimes is rules, because there's all these different systems, because they're trying to properly recreate, like especially with cyberpunk, there's all the hacking aspects of the game, and that has its own separate rule system. And then there's all the physical combat, because you see such remarkable physical feats and stuff like that, and all these unusual weapons that all need their own rules. And to see a skill system where it's just, here's your target number, roll under it.
Yeah. Well, also to get back what Doug you were saying earlier, and I think also it all depends as well on how much freedom you have in that licensing agreement as well. If they're pretty strict on saying you can only do X, Y, and Z, and you can't do anything more than that, then you're hampered. You might as well just be, making just a Candyland game for anything. But if you're able to say, yes, we can utilize this, and be able to say, not necessarily make it all canon, but being able to say, do what you want with it, because it's a different way to tell a story. So
yeah, absolutely. It's something that you kind of have to, if you're going to bring an IP to the world of tabletop games, as an IP owner, you kind of have to be a little willing to have that happen to some degree, because like you said, a tabletop game is going to go into so many more areas, because it is all up to the imagination of those at the table where they want to take it. And you have to be able to at least generally account for all the different directions that they want to go. And yeah, if you're too stingent with the license itself, then you're not going to be able to really get that proper translation, because the series is not going to touch on a number of things that we might need to touch on for a proper tabletop experience. So yeah, there definitely does have to be that leniency, and thankfully working with Skydance has been an absolute treat. So they've been very generous with giving us some wiggle room to play around within the IP, and really kind of be able to bring our own touch to it and make sure that we do it justice, so that it's not just an interpretation of Altered Carbon, but actually an expansion thereof.
Yeah, I two examples of it I would say is like one on one end is when West End Games did Star Wars, and it was Bill Saved, what's his name, Bill Slavicsek, is that the guy that basically ended up creating names of species, of alien species that George Lucas never had names for, and then they actually made that canon. And then compare that to as well with when White Wolf did World of Warcraft, the role playing game. And basically Blizzard said, this is not canon. Whatever they did here does not exist in the world of Azeroth. So you have these two on one side where the actual role-playing game helped create more of the extended universe, and then the other side where they just said that doesn't exist at all. So I think someone as a player of Altered Carbon, someone sitting down and playing the tabletop game, there's a level of freedom and excitement to know that what this is about is could very well see that pop up, some of the pieces of it pop up in actual like season 3 or season 4 or something along those lines.
It actually could one day be relevant, or they're not just dismissing you out of hand, because it helps with your immersion too, actually, as a player. Like if you're getting into the game and you're like, well, we're in an area of the game that's never going to exist, that's never going to be allowed to exist, that we've been told will never be a thing. So it kind of, it's not necessarily going to cripple your gameplay. You can still have a fun game, but knowing that you're not really in the game space anymore, I guess, or in the world space anymore, is kind of a bit of a letdown, I guess.
It can be jarring, yeah.
Right. And so, Alex, do you have any concern as well as I remember the first game that one of the first games I played when I was the Indiana Jones role-playing game, which was but my concern is that when I started playing that game, everybody wanted to play Indiana Jones. I want to play an archaeologist. So do you have is there any concern when you guys are sitting around the writer's table, the design tables, like everybody's going to want to play, similar to the main characters?
Yeah, everybody wants to
explore, and nobody wants to explore the fringes of some of the character concepts that you've created.
Well, that's part of the nice part about Altered Carbon, honestly, is that the series, when you think about the main characters, like obviously Takeshi Kovacs is the primary protagonist of the story. However, the side characters around Takeshi are also wildly important to the story and get explored in a fairly detailed way throughout the course of the show. So you've got people like Kristen Ortega, who is a part of the BCPD. You've got the socialite. I forget the character's name now off the top of my head, but it's Rosario Dawson's character, where she's at that intermediary stage where she's a high level individual, but not like meth status, and she wants to be. And all these people are getting drawn into whatever the overarching situation is. So the real central theme of season 1 was obviously what happened to Lawrence Bancroft, and all of these auxiliary people got pulled into it. And that's essentially kind of how the role-playing game approaches it, is that you'll have these grander situations that are going on that, with the way the system was actually designed, the game master might not even know all the answers when they initially sit down at the table and start going into it. And you'll let this neo-noir mystery kind of unravel around you as you role play, and find out why all of these disparate individuals kind of got pulled into this situation. And of course, you can always take kind of the show approach, where you've got this very key central protagonist who happens to draw all these people to him, and that's your point. But that doesn't have to be the reason. There doesn't have to be like a central individual specifically that is the cause of all this. It can be more of an event.
So let's talk a little bit about the Kickstarter itself. Now you've got some items on this Kickstarter that won't be available after the Kickstarter. So let's talk a little bit about this, because I think that this stack edition, like this limited edition cover and slipcase,
dude, don't
is amazing.
It is absolutely beautiful.
That is designed incredibly well. It's so like as soon as you see that book, you're like, that's an alter card. Like that book is for that IP.
Yeah. And to be fair, that's not to say that the standard edition cover is bad.
No
stretch of the imagination, but it really just does add this little bit extra to it, which yeah, it's going to be an exclusive item there. So if you do want to get that, I would certainly recommend jumping in at the DHF level on the Kickstarter there, which is going basically just above and beyond what the cost of like the physical book would be. You're essentially just doubling that cost, and you get a bunch of extra stuff along with that. So not only do you get the upgraded book, but you're going to get some art prints. You're going to get some digital setting books. You're going to get some reference cards. You're going to get a temporary tattoo. You're going to get a digital copy of the book. So you're going to get a bunch of extra cool stuff to go along with that beautiful, beautiful exclusive version of the book.
So I know it's a bit too late, but I think what you should have done for another add-on is actually have one that's like an actual tattoo, where an actual tattoo artist will come to your house.
I was gonna actually make some sort of comment, unless Jason backs it, and then we actually have to give him an actual tattoo.
I would be perfectly fine with that. I have a couple already, so I'm good with that.
Just add it to the mix.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a really, really cool looking book, and I love it when you can get like that swanky special Kickstarter edition.
Anything that comes in a slip cover is just
I'm a sucker for slip covers.
Oh yeah.
No, I want the dice.
Yeah, these dice. Let's talk about these dice. I've never seen dice like this before.
These
are
awesome looking dice.
As soon as I saw this Kickstarter launch, I'm like, what the heck are these things? And they are amazing. Like, where did you find these?
So this is thanks to the fantastic folks at Level Up Dice.
Oh, I love Level Up Dice.
Yeah, they do some great stuff.
They do so much amazing, fantastic stuff, and they have these aluminum dice, which when you say it, you think of almost like metal immediately because of the way it rolls off the tongue. But we're actually talking illum as in illuminate. So the trick with that is that they are activated by UV light. So we've got a really nice picture of the D6, I believe, at one point on the campaign page here. I forget exactly where it is. But it kind of shows off how when you're looking at them without a UV light, they're just clear. It looks like just a clear cube or what have you. But when you shine a UV light over it, the numbers themselves reveal. Now the D6 set that we have available, that doesn't actually come with a UV light. However, we did do a little bit of looking into it, and UV lights aren't actually terribly expensive anymore. You can get a little UV light pointer for about $3. But unfortunately, I do want to make sure that everybody is aware that the D6 one does not actually come with one. You will need to go ahead and grab a UV light yourself. However, the upgraded full polyhedral set, that one actually comes with like a nice little jewelry box type deal to hold all the dice in, and also does come with a UV light itself. So that way you'll have one right available. And we do actually have the full polyhedral set available as just an add-on. So if you do happen to go at the D6 level and you just want to quick add on the polyhedral set potentially, you could certainly do that to grab a UV light along with it.
And I will say so I saw the add-on for the polys is $50 for the set with the case.
Yeah, if you're gonna grab
$50. For a set of Level Up dice.
Well, just go ahead and jump up the pledge level, to be perfectly honest. Because you're at that point you are only $50 off, and you're going to get a bunch of other cool stuff at that point too, such as the cortical stack that we were talking about earlier, and that Hello Unicorn backpack from the show.
I love it. I love that you added that. That is such a great.
Alex, with all of this stuff that you have on there, what didn't you guys decide not to put in that was on your list? It must have been something where you said, well, no, we got too much.
In fairness, we did try to snag everything in there that we actually really wanted. The Hello Unicorn pack actually for me is the one that I find that's really actually pretty cool. So originally we weren't sure we were going to be able to go all out with it and actually get the actual replica design going. We were kind of just thinking, you know, we'll get a decent little bag that at least has the graphic on it and is still pink, but maybe not with like all the lights and everything else. And Skydance worked with us to make sure that we could get the full replica going. So yeah, it's pretty awesome because that one's actually one that I've seen online too, where loads of people seem to be asking to get that product. And you
Just
can
fans of the
now,
show, yeah.
if you come over to the Kickstarter, you can get that.
It's all of this. We're just seeing this, and then adding onto that. It reminds me of that joke with Gillette saying, "Screw it, let's put on six blades." I mean, let's just
throw another 3 blades in there. Yeah.
So one thing that I got to see at PAX Unplugged, that Ivan actually brought me aside, and he's like, "Hey, Doug, I gotta show you this about the upcoming Altered Carbon RP Kickstarter." He showed me some renders and previews of the minis, and the minis are I think you've unlocked a couple different sets at this point now.
Yep. So we have the first set on there right from the get-go.
Right.
At some of the pledge levels, which that one comes with a few of the archetypes. So it comes with the official, the soldier, the criminal, and the socialite. We've unlocked add-on set 2, which brings in the technician, the BCPD officer, the citizen, and the meth. And then we've also unlocked the SeaTac Praetorians, a set of 4 of them. And those ones in particular, for me, the detail on them is just astounding. Nice. Absolutely astounding. So there's a shot of them up on the Kickstarter add-ons right now that you can take a look at. That's just fantastic.
Now are the minis going to be resin, or do you know what they are? They are resin minis.
Nice.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that in one of the updates, or it may have been a comment. So if it was in a comment and people missed it, yeah, it is definitely resin on the minis.
Yeah, you guys are going to be unlocking Joburg, it looks like, any minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like we're right on the cusp of Johannesburg, which I think, I don't know, just looking real quick. There are a couple people online outside of me, but it may be up to me to go ahead and get an update out on that once we finish up with the stream here.
Very cool.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think that it's just awesome to see it just thrive, and
we will take the credit for that stretch goal.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Totally. Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that we might be able to unlock it on the actual stream here. So where are we at right now?
We're at $199,199.56.
Jason, go up your pledge.
Jason, you have to add
your guys' money is more than mine. I am just a Canadian. I can only do so much.
Yeah, but you get free healthcare, so you have more money than me.
I would like to refund my free healthcare so that I can back this Kickstarter.
Oh man, yeah, no, it's just
$50 away from it.
That's so great. That's awesome. Now the Sourcebooks, Alex, are they going to be separate releases, or are you going to combine them all together into one release? Or I guess
they're each going to be their own release there.
Okay.
So we actually for the books that we have unlocked right now, let me double check what we've got here. So we've got there's Osaka, which if I recall correctly, that's going to be Ginny Benson, who goes by Aki, for those of you who do the streaming circuit. They'll be going ahead and doing the Osaka book for us, and then we have Kat Evans actually going to be doing the Birmingham book.
Nice.
So that we're getting some decent voices there to be able to kind of provide a a better breadth of the world of Altered Carbon.
So also, Alex, I mean, I'm going to say this on behalf of Doug as well, that if you want to have one, if you keep going and going, I think Doug and I could definitely work and do like a Vermont source book for you.
Awesome. Well,
A hotbed of neo-noir.
Yeah, that's
depending upon how far we go. Like, obviously, we plan stretch goals out for a good long way, but you only plan them so far. So depending upon how far we go, we might have to slip some more things in there. We'll never.
Yikes.
We call it maple noir up here.
I was going to say,
Maple noir. Oh
technology
my
with slight maple flavoring.
I love it.
Word. Oh my word. No, I think that's just awesome. And then you've also unlocked some live plays, which of course we all know that your production in your studio just you work with some great folks to do some really awesome live plays of these RPGs, which I love that.
Big fans of that here.
Yeah, of course we do that here as well. But
of what we do here at Hunters Entertainment. So for people that have been following us for a while, I mean, we've got the World Live Frontier series, which featured Outbreak Undead, and partnered us up with the folks who do the long running series of World Live. So yeah, that was some fun zombie apocalypse fare that was pretty high production value for your standard tabletop RPG shows, and that's kind of like the level that we do like to shoot for. We've also got our friends over at Hyper RPG who do Kolok 1991, which has just some phenomenal effects and fan interactivity, so the viewers that are watching can get directly involved in the show. They come up with some very creative stuff over there. And then our friends over at Q Times as well also run a few shows related to our products. They've got a Nuclear Winter that they've run for Outbreak, and Hijinks and Handlebars, which I would say is their among their flagship shows. That uses our kids on bikes. So we are very big on that, and we do like to partner up with folks and assist with their streams as well. But our in-house ones, like We're Alive Frontier, we like to go that extra mile and really ramp up the production value to give you a really entertaining experience outside of just being able to showcase the RPG itself and the individual personalities that we get on there, because we do have some really cool friends that come on and help us out with that.
And Jason, we just guilted Jason into upping his pledge to but Jason, we still haven't unlocked that.
True.
Yeah.
We got it.
Jason, can you up it just another $900, man?
Just another,
Jason. Yeah. Just go ahead and jump in on one of those. Like you can do the 5,000 US and
Hey Jason, don't you want to have Ivan come on the show?
Seriously, that would be awesome. Yeah. Jason, you're the one who actually owns the thing, Doug. You get on that.
I'll tell you what, man. I'll if you want to just give me the $5,000 bundle, I'll get a tattoo of your choice. I will.
Honestly, looking at the art for that tattoo, actually, I can see you're going to have a lot of people out there who actually get that as a full-on tattoo.
Yeah.
The Ouroboros.
Yeah, they'll be taking the temporary to their local tattoo artist and be like, yeah, okay, put this on me for good.
I mean, Barney's thinking of getting it done as his lower back tattoo.
No, I want the one that the sister had on the side of her head. You know.
Oh yeah.
That was cool.
That is after we get Johannesburg unlocked, the next thing up actually is our season 1 miniatures, which will feature Takeshi Kovacs, Kristen Ortega, and since we were just talking about her, Rylene Kohara, and also Colonel Jaeger for a little bit of the antagonist side of things.
Now, are these minis going to be available in retail afterwards as well, or is this just a Kickstarter thing that you're doing? Or
the plan is for these to be a Kickstarter exclusive. So if you want to get in on those minis, definitely grab them now.
I'm glad I asked that. That's a big. Wow.
Do you have anything else past 250,000, or that's just where it ends?
And we aren't even actually showing what the 250,000 one is, to be perfectly honest there. But no, that's just kind of how we taper off the graphics there as we're going along. So we do have a few more things plotted out here that we'll be revealing once we've actually unlocked the season 1 cast. We like to get pushed up to that final level that we've revealed, and then we'll kind of drop 2 or 3 more along the way.
I like that signal loss thing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice little graphic that Chris worked up for us there. So, and then another thing that we'll be doing over the course of the campaign here, moving forward, we've done one so far, although the one we've done so far is actually for an item that we're now essentially out of, unless you go for high level ones, because you can get it on the 1500 or the 5000 level still. But
Jason,
that Songspire custom wooden GM screen that we had,
that's a Dogmite screen, correct?
Correct. So it is up to the high standards that they set for all of their screens, and it is just so beautiful, stained to kind of look like the Songspire from the series. So we did a spotlight on that, and we're going to continue doing spotlights moving forward, touching on some of the other products, some of the people who have been involved in the actual process of bringing Altered Carbon to life. So we'll be giving a lot more details on things as we roll forward along the campaign here.
I'm excited to see. Yeah, I'm excited to see where this is going to end up for you guys, because I just, like I said, I know it's going to be one of the highest funded campaigns for RPGs in 2020. So it's awesome. It's ever since it was announced, I knew that this was going to be something really big for you guys, and I think it's just
the sheer success of the Netflix show guaranteed that. Like, it exploded so much bigger than even I was. Like, I love my cyberpunk stuff, but seeing this thing take off was just absolutely amazing.
And it's fancy nice that how we lined up the season 2 launch.
That's pretty crazy. It's almost like you kind of knew it was happening. But it's really been awesome to see Hunters Entertainment kind of grow as a company over these last few years. Like, you guys are doing some really big things now, and it's just really awesome to see you just kind of become this force now.
I know the feeling. So I started off as a fan of Hunters Entertainment back with Outbreak Undead First Edition, when that was still the only thing that they had done here at the time. It was still just Ivan and Chris by themselves, just the two of them, and that was Hunters Entertainment. And so it's been really fun to come along with the company and get to be a part of that process as it grows from just a little known indie studio to a bit more of a household name these days.
Yeah, you guys definitely Kickstarters keep.
If you wanted to be a household name, stepping in with Altered Carbon is definitely a good way to go about doing it.
And we've got we're also jumping in on not to steal any steam from Altered Carbon, obviously, but we are jumping on Werewolf the Apocalypse. We're bringing the 5th edition. Tables coming in 2021. So
I've been watching those things come out, and every time one of those things launches, I'm just like, oh, I bought so much.
Cool. We've definitely been chatting about that a lot too. So it's just because we've got the Kickstarter going, we've got a lot of things in the fire right now. So.
What is the timeline for the Werewolf Kickstarter? Are you guys going to launch that right after Altered Carbon, or?
We may do a Kickstarter. We may do more traditional pre-order. We haven't entirely decided on that yet.
Jason, you kind of putting the guest on the spot.
Just a question. He could have said no.
You gotta have a Kickstarter with a high level, having like a nice glaive. I think that'd be pretty badass.
Well, did you see the to just kind of give a little love to one of our other World of Darkness affiliates out there that I've got stuff going on right now. The Vampire the Masquerade Chapters Kickstarter is going on right now too.
That looks amazing.
That exclusive Kickstarter exclusive werewolf figure that they've got. Ooh, that is so nice. So
are you And you're gonna have your pledge levels be like the $1 bonar.
We might have to be a little
Plebeian
careful
werewolf
about that. We
you.
might be showing favoritism to certain tribes at that point, and I think people might get a little salty. But.
Yeah, but the Bonars are my favorite tribe. What are you saying?
I have no money. Come on.
I don't know who likes bone gnars, man, but it was all glasswalkers.
But yeah, we've definitely we've got some cool things going on. So we'll get Altered Carbon out to the masses here, and also I think because people have kind of been poking and prodding about this a little bit, and I don't want to say too terribly much, but we've been getting asked as if there will be, if anything, beyond what we're doing here with the Kickstarter. And as I'm sure you guys know, we don't tend to be a one and done company if we can avoid it. So while I don't want to say a ton about what the future,
we want you to say a ton.
Say a ton.
Yeah, I would definitely at least say that people don't necessarily have to worry about us just kind of abandoning this property as soon as we get the Kickstarter out the door or anything like that. We wanted to work with the Altered Carbon universe because we definitely see a lot of potential in it. And there's a lot of interesting stories that we can potentially get into, and interesting things that we can cover in that universe. So I wouldn't expect it to be a one and done. Obviously, I mean, we're kicking out Sourcebooks through stretch goals, so we're already getting it past one and done right there. But
if is there anything else that Hunters Entertainment? We before we went live, you mentioned that you will be at some conventions, some of the major conventions this year. If folks want to see you in person.
So we will the two that we are working on getting fully set up right now, we'll actually probably have some details about this because we're also ramping up our presence at conventions this year as well. So we'll probably need some volunteer GMs out there, which we'll have some details coming out about our volunteer program in the very near future for folks to take a look at. But we are going to be going to Origins Game Fair. We will be at Gen Con again this year. That's kind of a traditional staple for Hunters. Even if we are doing a really light year where we only do one show, that show will end up being Gen Con. And then we're also going to do PAX Unplugged this year as well.
Excellent.
Nice.
Cool.
Excellent. And if folks want to follow you on social media or online, where should they go?
Yeah, so you can follow us a few places actually. So we're over on Twitter at Hunters_ENT. Then you can also find us on Facebook. We're Hunters Entertainment on Facebook, and also on Instagram. We're Hunters Entertainment over on Instagram as well. You can also head over to our Discord. We have links to that on our official Hunters Entertainment website, which is just huntersentertainment.com.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.